Anthony, whenever we can get you, we'll take it.
That's nice. Is your day going okay? Or
absolutely fantastic? How's Florida? Chicago is just brimming with humidity. Love it.
Really? That's interesting. Okay, I don't think of the north as being that way, but I'm sure
Lake Michigan. Yeah,
that makes sense. So, but you guys haven't. Well, is it tolerable otherwise, or?
Oh, there's no problems. There's no problems. You don't have to shovel anything. It's beautiful.
Oh, yeah. You get the reprieve. And you've been raised there your whole life kind of thing? Or?
Yeah, pretty much. Started in Queens, New York, then moved to Chicago, but definitely Chicagoan. So, a lot of mental health stuff going on. We got to get a list of questions to ask Jay.
Yeah, man. Go on, sorry.
Anything pique your interest?
Well, I looked at one of the articles you sent over, and I didn't get to read the detailed argument, but it was about adult.
Sorry, I'm late.
Hey, there he is.
Not late.
We won.
I'm never on time. I try really hard for this podcast, but if you were a client as part of my informed consent, I'm not on time.
we will take whatever we can get. This donated time of yours, you and Anthony, totally appreciated.
Yeah,
the algorithms appreciate both of you.
That's good to hear. I always wonder how you do with us. If it goes well, that's good feedback. I enjoy that.
I'm not making any money.
Fair enough.
I'm like everybody else in neurofeedback, with the exception of you, Joshua.
That's funny.
We appreciate you, Pete. Sorry, what did I interrupt? What's going on?
We're talking about the weather.
Do you guys have as much pollen as we do?
Yeah, tree pollen, tree and grass here.
Yeah, I'm dying, man.
What's going on with that? Can neurofeedback do anything to help my allergies?
Gosh, that's it. I mean, there's some maybe mild, small, changes or results.
Because allergies is just inflammation, right? T cells and all that, or how can we tell our brain?
It's not like you're going to get a panacea. You're not going to have hit the nail on the head, solved all the problems. But what you really want is you want the brain to bounce back from inflammation better, because even inflammation in the body, your brain mirrors it because of the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve says, okay, the body's got cytokines. Let's make our own cytokines to match it so that you feel really tired, so that you actually are forced to go lay down and rest. A book that kind of covers that data is The Angel and the Assassin, which covers a lot of the more modern research.
Donna Jackson, our good friend.
Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing stuff. But essentially, the microglial make cytokines, which is basically those precursors to inflammation, for the purpose of making you tired. And that's why people feel tired when they have allergies. I'm very tired right now because there's pine and grass are starting up. And so it's just wiping you out. I'm very allergic to grass.
Yeah.
And then, my options are, do I take antihistamines, which guess what? Also make you tired. Fun, right? So I would say that training the sensory motor rhythm is the mechanism that gives you better sleep spindles. And sleep spindles are where you convert your M1 pro-inflammatory microglial into anti-inflammatory microglial. That may not help you with your allergies, but it may help you recover from your allergies much, much quicker. It's a hypothetical thought. That's all.
I love this because I forget what you said. Something. When you said it was involved with vagus nerve. Well, when you stimulate the vagus nerve, it increases the sleep spindle. So to me, and that's what we're training when we do SMR. I found a study. I put it up in BrainMaster. And so there seems to be a direct. If you're right that allergies in the vagus nerve can be interrelated, that could be a way to access it. So, but I'm going to say
I always wondered if the vagus nerve stimulator is helping because it's disrupting communication.
Interesting. Helping allergies specifically or other things?
Just other things. Like for example, no, this is me thinking out loud. So don't think this is what it is.
No,
but
sure,
let's just say hypothetically. let's just say hypothetically you're struggling with allergies and you feel fatigued and you feel tired, and you do a vagal nerve stimulator and you kind of feel better. Like it's disrupting that like cytokine prompt, maybe. I don't know. I just like wonder, like, what are we really doing here? Like, because I mean, it's really weird. You're applying an indiscriminate stim to the vagus nerve. Like, is that really going to reorient it, or is that going to perturb it? And like a perturbation mechanism can be very useful in mental health, you know?
So I liked when you said like it's a wide spectrum of frequencies usually that are being raised. And something I read is like certain frequencies of vagus nerve stimulation are pro-inflammatory, increase inflammation. And I don't know that every person doing VNS, vagus nerve stimulation, knows about that, you know? And so that does, I wonder about that.
Yep, I do. I've not gotten into vagal nerve stimulation for the sheer purpose, for the sheer reason that I know that I don't know a lot, and maybe nobody does, but I'm convinced.
I am convinced that a lot of stimulation technologies are raising high beta. I think it was Paul Suter on Brainmaster. He posted some support for that. There was some research to support it. But regardless, because I worry that the stimulation, we don't know enough about the VNS stimulation, at least.
Yes.
If somebody could do SMR, I think that might be a cool experiment for their allergies, like you're saying. Because I'm less worried about, I think we understand what SMR is doing a little better, you know. So that's cool.
Yeah.
So neurofeedback can help you with the allergies. Is that what you're saying, Joshua Moore, on this podcast right now, this live stream?
You heard it here.
Is that going to be your workshop?
I think the evidence, I think it's likely to help a little bit.
No, you're supposed to say it depends.
It depends. It's just not the mechanism of action that's going to hit the nail on the head.
It's interesting. So I always hear that allergies are like the immune system is learning the wrong thing, is kind of the idea I've heard. It's learning to attack itself or your body rather than the molecule. Maybe it's the molecule, actually.
Like psoriasis?
That's autoimmune, I guess. But they're both immune. Anyway, the immune system's doing something it wasn't supposed to do, and it's learned to do that somewhere. So I'm thinking if there's like probably a phase of sleep, like you said, where the immune system unlearns things. I don't know if that's even a thing, but if there was, maybe you're right. Maybe SMR treats sleep. So maybe that's SMR is normally, I think it increases phase 2 and 3 sleep. And
we need like an immunologist to learn neurofeedback and then like tell us what the answers are.
That would be a neat thing. Yeah. Maybe I'll Google some and see what we find. That's neat.
Like, you know, there's always like really interesting people like ophthalmologists who learn neurofeedback, and they have these amazing perspectives on what neurofeedback does with like eyes and eye health. I've met a few, you know, but like, I don't think I've ever met an immunologist who specialized in neurofeedback, but that would be a revolutionary like integration.
Yeah. So you're right. And, it is really cool, the interactions between EEG and other fields. But
we were talking about this earlier today online, you and I.
Yeah, the functional medicine gut bacteria.
Yeah.
One sec before we do that, I did just want to say that I know that REM sleep in particular is associated with immune activity. Yeah. And so just putting this out there, you know, if for the internet, I guess, that if SMR deep sleep doesn't help your allergies, maybe REM sleep does. Obviously, tread carefully and all that. But maybe there's some neurofeedback that can help with that. Yeah, sorry.
What do you do to get more REM sleep? I always thought you had to get enough deep
alpha, but I could be wrong. That's my hunch, and I would need to go through my notes. Yeah, what?
It kind of glitched. Can you say it one more time?
My hunch would be suppressing alpha that's not supposed to be there. Excess alpha. But
that makes sense, actually. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
I think alpha and immune can be correlated.
Oh, yeah. We've been talking about that for a little while. That there was some discussion back and forth between me and Jay about that, and I do have some maps on that where that ended up being validated medically, and there was some funny stuff going on with alpha. Jay did say immune system stuff. We ended up confirming that medically after the fact. So I've got some templates that I have releases on that I can study it's subtle. I think we talked about that off air, but there's some subtleties that maybe can be correlated with immune issues. Yeah.
Yeah. What we were talking about off air is that Josh is saying, Pete, is we were talking about gut bacteria. There's a study that, what was the study? It was GABA and gut bacteria. Let me just,
Joshua, can you clue in the moms and dads and the video editors like me, like all the neurotransmitters that are in the gut? Is that the second most place where you find them, or what? How?
The number one place that you find all of them. That's where they're all made. That's not true. That's where 80% of them are made, I think.
Okay.
It's like 80% of serotonin specifically, and it's like half of your dopamine. I have this saved somewhere, but they make other ones too. But those are the big two that I've read, at least.
I just knew that it was a lot. Anthony knows more.
Well, something that in the study it said that prebiotics, which is it's fiber, it's like either soluble or insoluble. It's a fiber that stems of plants are made out of. Basically, it raises GABA in your brain. GABA is a neurotransmitter. It is a tranquilizer. It's the main. I think I heard a scientist say it's the only tranquilizer in the body. That essentially that's the off switch of neurons. And actually, what this study said, Pete. It said, and they showed it in mice, eating fiber may prevent diseases like, depression, Alzheimer's, or epilepsy. So good idea to eat your fiber.
Grape nuts?
Yeah, go on.
I'm just saying grape nuts will do a lot more for me than keep me regular.
Yeah, well, it's anti-cancer. So fiber appears to have anti-cancer effects because it's anti-inflammation.
I do wonder if grape nuts is like too processed. There's got to be like healthier versions of fiber.
Yeah, I tell people to take a fiber supplement because, like, I just know with myself, if I tell myself I'll just get it from my diet, how often do I do that? So I like to mention supplements, but
in the early days of mental health, I believe Kellogg in Michigan was a big proponent of fiber and all the camp that he had and the facilities that he had. That's where So
how do we take a wrong left turn after that? Sugar.
So he had some type of health camp, and then now he's making sugar cereal.
Yeah.
The brothers split. One brother was a health nut, and the other one wanted to make money. Of course, the money guy won, and then Go ahead, Anthony.
I'm a little off today. It's not coming as quickly, but on the fiber stuff.
Yeah.
It's anti-anxiety. There's a study out there showing that if you eat fiber, it can produce less anxiety. There's another one showing, very recent, that just eating more fruits and vegetables. Again, how many of us are going to do that? But people slept like 17% better just from eating. Yeah. I don't know.
There should be like a whole segment on like if this were a pill, everybody would do it. You like exercise. Like, it's like, okay, 80% reduction in virtually all depressed patients in a study who ran for 30 minutes or jogged for 30 minutes or biked for 30 minutes. And it's like, okay, if this was a pill, we'd all be taking it. And fiber sounds like it's in that category of like, it is a pill though. You could take it as a pill.
Yeah.
Anthony, you make this very convincing. I'm going to look for some fiber pills. I like it.
Yeah, well, Metamucil and all that. So yeah. So,
I mean, I'm going to look for the healthiest version, third-party lab tested. Labdoor.com is what I usually use.
Oh wow.
But I'll look into it because I like it, and I'm pretty good at changing my diet. But it's much easier to change just adding a supplement. That's easy. And
I will tell you, I have had certain fiber supplements not agree with people. So you may, if at first you don't succeed, try something else because,
The reason for going like a more natural route, not that I think that this is, you wouldn't want to go aim for the highest version because you'll fail and you just won't do it. I think doing something over nothing is better. But it's possible that the gut biome that you need, like maybe like the best probiotic is to eat a lot of vegetables. That maybe there's actually just a lot of things that come from like healthy gardening. And if you're gardening in your own garden and you're you're going to get a lot of what you're supposed to get from the fiber that you're growing yourself.
Well, hold
that's
on
kind of
now,
how we see it.
Joshua.
Yeah.
Getting back to our buddy, the vagus nerve, if you have too much of that fiber and you get the gas and you go to the bathroom, that vagus nerve, you'll pass out, won't you?
We're talking about Elvis, or what are we?
I think that's heroin addicts. You're thinking heroin
No, I'm
addicts.
dead serious. When you go to the bathroom and you got the cramps and your vagus nerve gets going, you pass out.
There is a version of like constipation that can stimulate the vagus nerve to the extent that it will make you pass out. That is very extreme though. And I joked about it being heroin users because that is like a thing in heroin use culture because it creates constipation.
I will tell you, Pete, I have read, it was a study on multiple sclerosis, but if people are having trouble digesting fiber, that means that can mean that they have a gut bacteria issue, because there are definitely people that do not have trouble bypassing fiber.
That's 100% agree. It should not be that way. I eat more vegetables than you imagine, and I don't have any issues.
Vegetables, I think, are definitely hard, but like, there's you can get better. So this is the study on MS patients. It said that eating fiber could help them a lot because of inflammation, anti-inflammatory. It said if they can't do fiber, they should try 2 weeks of 4 cups of fiber a day or something. And you could even introduce it a little more slowly than that. And their theory is that will reset your gut enough that you can then eat it without problems. And I think anecdotally, I have seen that for people that they introduce it slowly and they get better. But
don't accidentally add a lot of lectins in. That's another reason why tablets are a safer way to start, because lectins, if added, will disorient you because they'll upset your stomach. And that's what causes the gas most of the time, Pete. It's lectins.
Those are FODMAPs or whatever. I think that includes like beans. Some people can't process
beans, quinoa,
beans.
and breads.
Yeah. So that's where the experimentation could come in, is you could say, just because one fiber didn't help you is what I'm talking to the audience. Just you try another, see if you have another one, another supplement, another something.
Thank goodness for radar. You want to get that one, Anthony?
Allergies. So ILF does have some vasodilation, vasoconstriction elements. And so again, we are talking small effect. We are talking not likely seen in large studies, not likely seen as a large effect. But when you do infralow, you will sometimes notice your sinus drain. You will sometimes notice like things open up because it has a vasodilating effect at certain frequencies. You fiddle with the frequency knob and it will do different things. It might make you congested if you have it at the wrong frequency. So now, is that helping your allergies? It's kind of like in the eye of the beholder, I suppose. I think it can be helpful for your allergies. It's not surprising to me that Sue Othmer used it to reduce her thyroid medication. I have 100% seen that even in my employees. I had an employee who used to be on thyroid medication and retested and was off their medication and tested normal after doing ILF. So that's not surprising to me at all. That being said, there's a lot of things that can go wrong with your thyroid that make you take thyroid medication. So do not think that that's just like a thing you can do. We don't know why it works sometimes. We don't understand, what goes wrong with your thyroid when it goes wrong. There's not one thing that goes wrong. There's a lot. So
but how many of those neurotransmitters make their way to the brain?
So the paper this week on probiotics raising GABA or prebiotics raising GABA radar, what it said was it's not been proven that the neurotransmitters in the gut make their way to the brain, but they said that there are other mechanisms theorized as to how they could be influencing it through signaling, I guess, that basically the neurotransmitter in the stomach tells the vagus nerve something and it tells the brain something, and that results in more. But anecdotally, I mean, I've seen some big changes on probiotics, good, mostly bad, if I'm being honest with you, but it's got to be doing, I'm very convinced they affect the brain. One thing on the gut,
when you have like a more direct relationship, that's a bad thing. So I'll give something more specific. When people take like oral GABA or L-theanine or something like that, and they have like an immediate, the mic's over here. They have like an immediate,
ooh, that's good.
Neurological response. Sorry, Pete, I'm just not paying attention today. So like you take oral GABA and like 30
Yeah.
minutes later you feel really chill. That's not a good sign because it's not supposed to go to your brain. So
Yeah,
like
Santiago has said that.
So I do see that all the time. Like when I do intakes with people and I'm talking, every now and then I'll have someone who's like celiacs, or we find out later that they're celiacs, and they're like, I really like my oral GABA supplement. And I'm like, dude, you cannot be on that. That's basically working like a benzo. You can't take that.
Yeah, and Josh, that was my concern to you as well. I'll just say it to you.
Mm-hmm.
I almost was uncomfortable telling you what I had discovered because it would be, in theory, it would be like taking a benzo if there was a gut bacteria that could raise that. I wanted to warn you, and that's
if there was a gut bacteria that could raise GABA.
And
well, if it's but there's a normal range for it. So, for example, and there's also there's a difference between a gut, and this is actually what it's doing, and this is very, very different. It's not necessarily producing the whole neurotransmitter GABA, but it's producing the precursor components for GABA, which get through the blood-brain barrier, and then your brain puts them together to make GABA. And that's more likely what's going on.
And the other thing is, I mean, we're doing neurofeedback partly because we all have rejected the idea you just take a pill or you use chemicals. We're not trying to, as Jay says, use ligand-gated channels, use proteins to change our brain. We're trying to change the network such that we don't need to take anything. Right. And so I am resistant, like, to using even a probiotic if you can use the brain. And so you mentioned GABA. You know what creates more GABA function? It's SMR. It's the sleep spindle.
Oh, sure, yeah.
In the thalamus, at least, and probably also alpha training at the back.
The idea being that you're not making the actual GABA from the gut biome. You are making the Legos that are appropriate for constructing GABA.
Yeah,
and the SMR actually is what puts those together.
Yeah, I'll talk to you offline because it's
okay. And there are normal ranges for that. Now, here's the thing: like the people that we give, not that we, but that my employee. So, what the context for people who may not know is that we've had some people do some gut biome testing who have like low voltage fast phenotypes, and some of them have come back with a gut biome imbalance where they're missing something that it contributes to GABA production. That's like interesting. So we thought, well, that seems really like suspicious that there's a GABA imbalance in their brain and there's something going on in their gut that's GABA influencing. So giving them the specialized probiotic that helps balance that out. Has it had a dramatic influence on them right away? No. So the neurofeedback's way more obviously impactful.
Here's another angle on it. Well, thank you for saying that. I agree. We believe in neurofeedback. What I was going to say is all these people with gut issues. I learned something this week. Do you know what the #1 medical condition associated with sleep deprivation is? This is according to Time Magazine yesterday. Lactose intolerance.
Jeez, interesting.
So if you have bad sleep, most lactose intolerant people have bad sleep. Maybe they don't even know they do, but they do. Yeah. And so they posited, well, the lactose is affecting their sleep. But I think it could be going the other way. The sleep is affecting the immune system, which is affecting the allergies. And one of the reasons I think that is, so we've all heard this, but a friend met an autistic guy one time that she was in a neurofeedback office. This is a close friend of mine. There's a young guy there, 15 to 18, let's say. She says, oh, do you like neurofeedback? Because she was new to it. He goes, it's changed my life. He goes, I'm autistic and I used to be nonverbal until I did SMR neurofeedback. And I'm talking now. Okay. He made it to teens practically. And then he said, when I was nonverbal, the only sounds I would make would be moans because my stomach hurt so bad and I couldn't tell people. And so, and we've heard these things, autism and stomach, IBS and autism are very related. Okay. So, and all of those are related to bad sleep. They're all related to epileptic, subclinical epileptic, and all that's related to lacking a sleep spindle. So
you and I are going to agree wholeheartedly that the main event that we're most passionate about is absolutely going to be neurofeedback. Yeah. And clinically, that's where I put all my eggs. I am interested in some side quests, but I'm only interested.
I like that.
passionate, you know.
I like the term sci-fi. Yeah, so I just, and just for the audience too, and not for you, I really appreciate that you know, we're of similar thinking on this. And it's just my idea is, yeah, you can try your fiber, you can try your pro, but you know, I'm not going to tell you not to try it, but also see if you can improve your sleep, and maybe neurofeedback could help you do that. Maybe that fixes your sleep, your gut problem if you fix your sleep. Let's see what Radar says here. He says allergene and high histamine. So Radar on he asked if allergies and high histamine are correlated with frontal hyperarousal. Radar, I recall Andrew Hill on his live podcast, I don't know, a month ago, saying he did one on allergies, which people may want to listen. And what he said is histamine speeds up the brain, and it is associated with high beta. And so I would say my hunch is your question. The answer is yes, but I'll let Josh talk too.
I've always read that it elicits more theta, like more drowsy states, but that could be vigilance rather than actual mechanisms.
That's interesting because isn't antihistamine sedative? So I wonder
they create theta too, though. So it's like I always felt like you get theta from allergies, but you also get theta from antihistamines. So you're tired from allergies, you're tired from antihistamines. It's a lose-lose. But I do think that I would, you know, trust, you know, Andrew Hill on that. I don't research.
I wouldn't tell you it's not. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, and vigilance is not the same thing. Like usually when you're assessing somebody, you kind of like are trying to triage out vigilance. So,
you know what's funny, and to Radar as well, Radar, Andrew said, and this will merge with Josh's comment. He said, so it speeds up your brain, increases beta, and that's an ADHD pattern. And he says, so the stereotype of the smart nerd with a lot of allergies, it might actually be correct. And so Josh, you're making that one, theta is frontal theta is another ADHD pattern. So we all might
smart nerd with a lot of allergies. That's funny.
Let's see, we got Hida here. Yeah, Hida says, I think it depends if it's a sedating antihistamine. That's probably true, Hida. I think there's like an H1, H2 receptor, and depending, that makes H3, I even know. So
there's a few that aren't. Yeah. Seems like most of them are. As someone who's had a lot of allergies, who's tried a lot of antihistamines, it seems like I could be wrong, but my personal anecdotal experience was that most of them were sedating. Like things like Claritin aren't sedating, but there's a lot of them are.
I know people that can take a Zyrtec and they're out for the whole day. And it caused me to, it's really big time. And there's a gene. It's if you can't take Zyrtec and whatever receptor, it's like the H1 receptor. It's very common antihistamine target. That's a genetic response, apparently. It probably manifests in the EEG, by the way, if the histamine's affecting it. Let's see.
Absolutely.
Radar says histamines and acetylcholine are correlated. That's very interesting, Radar. I appreciate you.
Acetylcholine, I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah, acetylcholine is associated with dopamine release, and it's associated with learning.
Yeah.
And it's associated with arousal, I believe.
Well, it's usually very activating. That's why I wouldn't expect those to be correlated.
But interestingly, let's see here. That's why first-gen antihistamines, that's like Benadryl, probably make you groggy.
First-generation histamines will make you high as a kite. I don't like them.
I think Benadryl is one of those. Is that one?
Oh, is it? There's a couple
high on that, so to speak, or you know.
Wait, hold on. Radar says that will give you dementia. What?
Well, that's glad I stay away from them then. Glad to hear that.
So there was they don't like older people. The medical advice these days is older people should not be taking Benadryl daily. And it's because it suppresses acetylcholine. And acetylcholine is associated with cognitive function.
Oh, sure.
I don't recall precisely.
So it's the negative interaction. It actually blocks the acetylcholine, or is an
it's anticholinergic. It blocks your acetylcholine. And you know what I'm seeing here is that acetylcholine is related to theta as well. So to back Josh up, because if it's histamine is related to theta, acetylcholine is related to histamine. So anyway. So some interesting stuff there. But yeah, the neurotransmitter stuff, this is why I was originally a nootropic guy, like a little bit, which is where you try to use supplements to change your brain. And what I found is it's hard to target. Like it's flooding your whole
You
brain.
know which phenotype to use it with, by the way. There are phenotypes that do well with nootropics.
I could believe it. Yeah. That'll be better if you use your phenotype. I'm convinced.
It will be. There's not a lot of like, it's the I don't know if I should dive into that, but I believe I've figured it out.
No, that's great. I wouldn't say, I'm sure there's successful individuals within that. So that's great.
Well, I mean, we're seeing it work fairly consistently. Like it's kind of like, well, we could do neurofeedback, but you can also do this at home, you know?
Yeah. I think that's cool. I have a friend who, I don't know, he incorporates supplements into his neurofeedback practice, you know, selectively. So I'm sure I'm sure there's a place for that.
Radar
I don't think it's a good fit for most people, though. I don't.
Radar brings up blood-brain barrier, and for the video editors out there that don't understand that process and how that plays a role in our processing, could somebody explain what that is, Joshua?
Yeah.
So the blood-brain barrier is a very sophisticated mesh filter between your brain and the peripheral nervous system and vascular system that prevents regular contaminants and irregular infections and foreign bodies from getting to the brain. And that allows your brain to have a totally separate immune system than your body does. Because it has its own separate immune system, it's got its own different responses. It's got its own, different memory, and it's got its own inflammatory system. And then there's actually a nerve called the vagal nerve that communicates between the body and the brain, and it kind of relays information about the immune system between the two, and they kind of partner back and forth. And so they do try to mirror each other to a degree. And they have different processes for dealing with problems and different processes for inflammation, basically. And the brain has different needs. It can't really afford to swell very often, for example. Swelling's not a good choice. Pressure. Yeah. There's a lot to consider. But the brain barrier can be breached by heavy metals. It can be breached by proteins coming from the gut in the case of celiac disease.
Is that why lead is so bad?
Yeah, sure. That's not the only reason why lead is so bad, because lead's not only going to damage the blood-brain barrier, it's also going to just trash the cells in the brain, and that will lower your peak alpha. So, for example, your alpha wave is kind of constructed by the default mode network, which is about a third of the cells in your brain. It will trash the brain so hard that it will lower that peak frequency down. That's what lead is known for. But it's also going to trash your blood-brain barrier on its way there. And that's going to cause a lot of health problems because things can come and go back and forth between the immune systems. They're not supposed to do that.
Ryan, thank you for showing up so I don't have to ask a question. How do you judge when someone is done training SMR and he risks overtraining it? Trying to figure out how to judge when you squeeze out all the benefits without going too far, if that's even a thing.
I love how detailed this question was. Go on.
Very good. Do you want to cover this, Anthony? I can cover it if you don't, but go ahead.
Let me hear you first.
Okay. Yes, I have a couple things on overtraining. One, there's a few versions of overtraining that only occur in the short run, and if you don't run into those, the long-term effects of overtraining, like I've done 60, 80, 100, 200 sessions, you don't really run into the risk of like overtraining generally with a normal person. If you're not epileptic, you're not autistic, and you are going like 100 sessions, you're going to be okay. At some point though, you're going to see just, diminishing returns, and you don't necessarily need to continue if you're not getting much out of it, because you can continue to enhance the sleep spindle by small amounts. And there's no need to if your diminishing returns are occurring, because it will start to flatten out your affect if you do like 100 more than you actually need. And so people tend to get flatter affect when they get like 100 more sessions than they need. Now, in the case of like epileptics, we're okay with that because we do want to give them twice as much as is necessary because they'll survive versus dying. But you don't necessarily need 300 sessions or 200 sessions if you're not an epileptic.
And they probably need more too. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, but if you have 100 and you're just doing it for like, general health reasons, I think that's okay. I don't think you're at risk at 100 of having any kind of affect changes.
I had a situation with SMR just now, real quick, that a person was they had been doing SMR for a long time with no trouble, and suddenly it started to shorten their sleep, And they stopped training SMR up and only did suppression, broadband suppression at those areas. And suddenly their sleep got better and everything got better. There's a specific reason for that.
I'd love to know.
That I think it's because they started thyroid medication. And thyroid medication, one, it changes your alpha peak, which might change other things. But two, I found it increases the sleep spindle. And so they're already getting more SMR. Like their SMR is probably normalizing when they started the high. They
were doing it because they were low on thyroid.
Yeah, they were needing it probably because of thyroid. So I would say, obviously, if if you're getting side effects, you stop. Another thing that just occurred to me before we answer Radar's next one, if Radar or if anyone, I'm just thinking out loud here. It occurs to me that if somebody is having to do neurofeedback every day to get the effect they want, and like maybe it's this short-term effect. I'm not saying Radar's doing that, but I'm thinking about it. Let's say you feel like every night you do SMR, you sleep good that night, but you don't sleep better the next night and the third night. That makes me a little bit wonder if what they're getting is like a treatment effect only and not, and a treatment effect to me makes me worry if it's the right treatment for them. So I just wanted to put that out there. Like I get an impression from Jay, if you're doing the right thing, it should last. In fact, it should all, he says there's studies where you just get better over time. You don't have to. But yeah,
I would also ask if there's some global health contaminant that's not resolved yet. So why treatments don't stick might be because we haven't solved for something that needs a solution. And I have seen this. So I've had people run away from other clinics that were doing something maybe black boxy or something like that, and they didn't like how they felt, and they had very strong bad reactions to something. And we found that they were having very strong reactions to even safe evidence-based protocols. And we started sending them off to like functional health doctors and integrative medicine doctors and doing more talk therapy. I've done this maybe a half a dozen times. And they always come back with, lead poisoning, bromine poisoning, severe mold toxicity levels. It's always something like that. There's been a half a dozen of them at least. And so it's like, okay, we have to do treatment for that first before their nervous system becomes unprickly. And sometimes in my experience, it can be how you described it, where the treatment sits well and is not abreactive, but then just doesn't hold,
Joshua, what is fibromyalgia?
Fibromyalgia is hard to describe, but it's a pain-based disorder that is in the nervous system, and it's very complicated. It needs to be diagnosed by a neuropsychiatrist, I believe, especially if you want it to stick as a diagnosis, which you probably do because it can be quite debilitating. And it has a lot of different triggers, and there are specific pain points that are specific. That's why you have to go to a specialist to get diagnosed.
I'm going to ask Jay about this one tomorrow because Radar brings up the question, what brainwave EEG patterns do you see associated with pain, like chronic pain or nerve pain? That's what fibromyalgia is kind of popped in.
Well, I think Jay would be better answering this question. I think the fibromyalgia question is a different question than their question.
Yeah.
Like chronic pain is, I think, now, Anthony, maybe you remember this, but I think chronic pain is an alpha asymmetry up front, generally, I think. But I would double check that if I had someone coming in for chronic pain, because it's been a little while. Like I say that with a little bit of hesitancy, like I got to go check my notes or ask somebody,
In your handy dandy IIAPD, whatever the acronym is, book, the efficacy is not too bad for chronic pain, isn't it?
No, it's not. In fact, that'd be that's the easiest place. Like if I didn't have already access to a mentor, or if I couldn't find the notes on it, which I'm getting, the older I get, the better I get at notes. And I can always just go check the fancy book and see what does the literature say. This book, I get a lot of bang for my buck out of this book, the evidence-based practices in biofeedback and neurofeedback. I mean, you could just always thumb through the research and figure out what good studies were done on what,
Look it up real quick, Joshua. Chronic pain. What's it say? Go ahead.
I think it is actually under C, chronic pain. Yeah, it is chronic pain, page 200.
Then in the meantime, while we're noodling here.
So we do have an efficacy rating of 4 out of 5 for non-cardiac chest pain, chronic lower back pain, chronic neck pain. Cool. That's fantastic. That's 4 means that we know it works. That's great.
You're welcome.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Well, real quick,
Does it depend on the type of pain?
There are other types of pain that have a little bit lower efficacy, like we have probably efficacious for gastro, esophageal reflux disease, mucosal skeletal pain, cancer treatment-related pain, phantom limb pain, pelvic pain, constipation. Those are all level 3s, which are probably efficacious. And then we have possibly efficacious for menstruation-related distress and whiplash. So we got stuff we're working on, but that's a lot of efficacy ratings for pain. Like, geez, and a level 4 for a few of them.
Why is it in my mind? I hear Jay saying something to me about the more you focus on something, the more it gets worse, and neurofeedback can help whoever that is.
That goes to Radar's question. Does it matter what type of pain? Can I tell a short story that I sometimes tell my clients?
Yeah.
When I was a life flight medical reception, I worked at the President's Hospital. I did life flights, was an orthopedic specialist. And if you got blown up, you get patched and get flown to me. And then I would do about 3 nights a week. I do life flight triage. That was my job. And I loved that job. It's a little bit crazy. If you're a crazy person, maybe you enjoy it though. And during the day, when you're not doing the life flights, you'll do some sort of rotation like clinic work. And I was doing clinic work for a rotation once, and there was these 2 back-to-back clients that had a flashbulb memory on. The first one was a young 23-year-old guy, and he had half arthritis on only one knee. So 25%, essentially one condyle on one knee had arthritis because of a shrapnel injury. And it was fully healed, but he still had some of the arthritis. And he was limping, and tears were coming down his face as he was limping down the hallway needing help. And he was begging me for essentially an anti-inflammation shot, these specialized shots. You can only get a couple of them in a row before they're never good again. You can't use them ever again. And the inflammation is permanent. Yeah, exactly. I was like, how technical I get, They make the inflammation permanently worse, and you can only get a couple of them before you can't use them anymore. And so it's like, he's 23. When do we start this process? Geez, So, triaging medical care for this guy is hard. After he left, a 90-year-old woman wandered in with a cane that she kind of tapped on the ground, but she didn't really use. She hopped up on the bed by herself. I looked at her x-rays, and she had bilateral bone-on-bone knee, bone-on-bone arthritis. And I remember asking her, I said, "Ma'am, are you in any pain?" And she said, "I wouldn't call it pain." I was like, "What would you call it?" And she said, "I would call it stiffness." And I said, "Are there times when it's better or worse?" And she said, "Well, it's usually worse in the morning." I was like, "That's arthritis." and so it was like, you qualify for a bilateral knee replacement. And her response was, "Well, I hardly think that's necessary." I was like, "Well, far be it from me to push. You're fine." And so it's fascinating because the point of the question, there's research about this. The longer you can tolerate pain without pain medications, the higher your pain tolerance goes up. No limit, non-linearly, observable by the 2-year mark and beyond. If you go on pain medications, the opposite is true, and there's no limit to how pain sensitive you can get on pain medication either. Okay, those are it's related.
The medication itself sensitizes you to pain. It's literally called chronic pain sensitization. And it even happens with over-the-counter aspirin and other things they've discovered. Before we answer, I just want to say one more thing on pain before we go to Radar's last question. So I feel like Jay would usually bring up, Radar, a famous paper by a guy named Dirk de Ridder, a neurosurgeon, on what's called thalamocortical dysrhythmia. And it is frontal alpha that's slowed into the theta range. So it will look like theta on a map. And that is very associated. It's associated with Parkinson's and tinnitus, but it's also associated in depression, but also with chronic pain. And so I guess frontal slowing would be a thing seen in chronic pain of various types. And so maybe addressing it would help. So
I think neurofeedback can help people get to chronic pain tolerance, maybe not while they're on high painkillers though. So that's the concern. It's like we have a lifestyle that has to be balanced against the training too. And the longer they've been in a healthy relationship with medication, the better the neurofeedback can help them. Yeah, I think. It's tough,
mindfulness too. But I think Ryan has a good question. I feel bad for him if I know I delayed too. But do we want to do Ryan's question about He says, I have a rotating schedule. I have a unique job piloting cargo ships, and I pull all-nighters that take a toll. Do you think neurofeedback could help offset some of the negative effects? What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I think there's lots of vigilance regulation protocols. I would probably also steer you towards some of the, neurofeedback adjacent stuff from neurofeedback, providing specialists like Dave Seaver's Mind Alive, audiovisual entrainment stimulation. So you can teach your brain how to get back on track circadian rhythm wise. So it's stim goggles that wake you up and help you get relaxed so you can sleep. That's what the astronauts use to create their own sleep cycles in orbit. Go get some of them astronaut goggles from Dave Seaver's Mind Alive. He was on the podcast a few weeks ago, wasn't he? Yeah. Dave Seaver's great. He's a great person. You can just call him and talk to him too. So there's a few things that neurofeedback can do. It can help you get more with less. It can help you get reoriented faster. And then there's some cool tools that are just like quick stim devices to help you get reoriented and get kind of like your circadian rhythm reoriented faster.
Don't you just pop a couple melatonin or no?
I personally, Anthony knows how I feel about that, but not everybody's made from melatonin.
Some people get real bad dreams. It might depend how much they take. And what else are you thinking about, Josh? Remind me. I apologize. I can't immediately remember.
Oh, some people do really, really well with melatonin, like myself.
Okay.
And at higher doses, it can work as a really good anti-inflammatory effect too. But some people, like Anthony said, it can be really terrible. And you can get horrible headaches. You can get hallucinations. You can get anxiety. All kinds of stuff. So don't play around with melatonin lightly. It's don't do it right before a big flight or right after a big flight. Just be careful.
Interesting. Yeah, that could be smart.
Research the brand.
He's piloting cargo ships. Go on.
Yeah, research the brand. I think like 40% of all brands have, neglectful levels of inappropriate content in them. So get some third-party tested content.
Yeah, the dosage on melatonin in specific, they found it can be way off. Like I think they literally said 50 times different. In one bottle. 2 pills could be drastically different dose.
Especially those gummies.
Oh gosh.
Really?
Yeah.
They hit you, huh?
Danger. Yeah, danger.
I wonder if he's talking about a different kind of gummy, but I won't ask.
Take melatonin very seriously.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Getting back to pain, how does some people have a higher pain tolerance? What's going on in the brain, or is that just all in their head?
Interesting one.
Higher pain tolerance. I think it's acquired over years and years and years of developing that. I think you might even have neuromarkers for it. It's seen in very, 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 very subtle frequencies of beta. I think low beta, mid beta, probably mid beta. But you earn it. You earn it. This 90-year-old woman, she may have been 70, but she was an older woman. The point of the story was that she was older. That she earned that. And we can help people get there, but the hardest part is getting them to have a proper relationship with medication. That's harder. So
I Googled it just now, just so people know, and it says the slower your alpha frequency, the more pain sensitive you'll tend to be. That's the first thing that came up. And that's what Jay's study says, the Ritter study says. Yeah, go on.
Because alpha 1 is the more introspective inward alpha. That makes perfect sense.
That makes sense. It makes you sensitive now to your inner state. The slow alphas, internal awareness.
I wonder if it's more, because I remember there being research on frontal alpha. I need to go do some more research, but I bet if it's slow frontal alpha is the pain neuromarker. Yeah, because the alpha 1 is the inward focused alpha. Alpha 2 is the mindful alpha.
Joshua, how's your workbook coming along? Got any new chapters in it?
I just finished the low voltage fast recording. I sent a tiny clip of it to Anthony before the podcast because I wanted to give him credit for something.
He's got a lot of stuff. It's very far ranging what he's got in there. It's pretty neat.
Each module is going to take at least a month. And so there's some part of me that knows that I need to start releasing. Like when I get 3 modules, I need to start releasing it because I can't have it sitting around for a year. Because it's going to be outdated. Like I recorded the low voltage fast module on Monday.
Okay.
And then by like Tuesday or Wednesday, Anthony is giving me stuff that made me like, oh my gosh, that needs to go in something I recorded yesterday. So like, can you imagine if something sits for a year? That's not going to be good.
Now I feel guilty, but
What's that?
That's cool though.
Maybe we gotta do what we're doing, Joshua. Launch it and then put it behind a paywall after a period of time. If people, you can see the current edition for free, and then if you want to go back and see the others, do a donation or something.
Cool.
Whatever.
Yeah, I'm comfortable, like, potentially, letting people updating it, and there's a difference between like is the field advancing and we want to make a new edition after 2 years, or are we updating it because we are enhancing something that we should have been right on the first place? So if I'm improving something that I should have been right on in the first place, I'll probably just make those corrections and update it for everybody. And I even set out an email, and I'll just overlay on the recording like a little notice, so people go back and rewatch it. It'll say what has been updated if I find myself being wrong on something. But if the field's just growing and getting better, we'll just redo it every year or 2 years. I don't know how I think there's the ability to make it very affordable and still do well financially on it. Like I looked at the numbers and it's like there's plenty of money here and you can be generous. That's kind of what I think.
Right. That's the best place to be, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Joshua, people want to learn more about you and they're in Washington. What do we tell them?
You can go to neurofeedbackcare.com and you can, reach out to me, message me, give me a call, connect, consult. I probably do 1 or 2 hours of international consultation a week even. So I do a lot of just connecting around and consulting on cases. And if you just want to reach out to me on like the Neurofeedback Clinical Consultation Forum, I do a lot of just quick consulting for free, where a lot of people do. Like a lot of the best people who are even better than me will consult with you for free on that forum. So just go check out the clinical consultation, the Neurofeedback Clinical Consultation Forum. You have to have some reasonable protocol-based approach, and you have to kind of make a petition for why you should be in the group. We don't let everybody in. So if you don't answer the questions, you won't be let in the group.
You have to ask. We can't afford it.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people just apply and then ignore the questions. We just don't accept those numbers. But and the reason why is because we want people to be using. They don't have to be a clinician, but they need to be using clinical level systems and protocol-based approaches. So we're not looking for people coming in who are going to advertise to the people in the group. It's kind of a sacred group.
So for the people that kicked out of your group, Joshua, is there, Anthony, you know of another technology group that they
Yeah, no, that's great. And we'd love to have you. I see some new faces, Ryan and Hida, obviously no pressure, but you're always welcome in. You can join my group, Science and Technology. Radar's always welcome, obviously. I think he's already in some of them. And then Science and Technology Discoveries, and then the Brain Master group on Facebook. I like, and there's some good neurofeedback. Just to type in neurofeedback and groups on Facebook, and they all got some good community, so that's good.
Maybe we need a neuro-noodle community, or maybe that's what this is.
Cold plunge, red light therapy, Ryan, Hans. Yep.
Interesting.
To
wake up.
We used a ton of red light therapy when I was working at the President's Hospital, by the way. And people don't know that they use tens of millions of dollars probably in red light therapy over there. It's ridiculous how much they use. And
that's pretty neat.
Yeah, it's funny because you go to like any civilian hospital and they're like, "Oh, this is all pseudoscience." It's like, not to the government.
Well, you know that it's an FDA approved treatment for bone healing, I think.
Sure. Yeah. We did a lot of that. Yeah.
Pain, cellular
laser. Go on. Sorry.
We did a lot of hyperbaric oxygen therapy as well. Yeah. We did a lot of electrical stim therapy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I know.
And Ryan's doing it too already. So it sounds like he's deep into stuff. So that's great.
Ryan's probably got an interesting story.
Ryan, we need to hear more from you, my friend. See you in 7 days, my friend. Joshua Moore, Anthony Ramos, thank you for another outstanding Q&A. Before I let everybody go, is there any specific question that we should ask Jay or Dr. Marie tomorrow? Pain
would be a good one because I'm not studied up on it, but I bet Jay would know it off the top of his head.
I wonder what Jay would say about the gut. Sorry to cut you off there, Josh.
Oh, no, you're good. Please, you're good.
Yeah, just say I'm taking the notes now. What should we ask him?
Gut health and neurofeedback. Is there any way to improve your gut health with neurofeedback? I'd be curious to hear if he knows of anything.
Yeah. I'll watch it. Yeah.
All right, Jay. See you tomorrow. Bye, guys.
All right.
Wait, hold on.
See
Ask
you,
Jay why he
dude.
doesn't come to these live streams anymore. Because he's freaking busy.
He's been doing a lot. He's
He does a lot.
We wear him out.
There you go.
But you can see him. You can see him on the Thursday show.
All right,
Radar.
guys. Thank you, everybody.
All right, boys. Bye later.
Nice to see you, everybody. Bye.
Good to be seen.